And to other stories, it has been nearly 3 years since Captain Ibrahim Traoré took on the reins of leadership in Burkina Faso, and there is a speculation in Western media of the type of government that he runs and if it's a democratic one. The charismatic 37-year-old has skillfully built the persona of a Pan-Africanist leader determined to free his nation from what he regards as the clutches of Western imperialism and neo-colonialism. Now, after seizing power in a coup in 2022, President Traoré's regime ditched former colonial power, France, in favor of a strong alliance with Russia that has included the deployment of a Russian paramilitary brigade and adopted left-wing economic policies.
Who throws away billions in aid when their people are scraping by on less than $2 a day? Who risks global condemnation, sanctions, and domestic hardship, all in the name of chasing economic sovereignty? Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso did exactly that. And whether it turns into the continent's biggest success story or a heartbreaking cautionary tale, the world can no longer look away. Burkina Faso is a country that's known far more for struggle than triumph. Landlocked, largely arid, and battered by extremist attacks from the north and east, it's spent decades limping along on foreign aid. Over 50% of its national budget has often depended on outside donors, European nations, the World Bank, NGOs with slick logos and well-intentioned mission statements. For the average Burkinabe, this has meant clinics with European flags painted on the walls, school programs funded by Canadians, even salaries of local bureaucrats indirectly tied to foreign checks. It was a system so normalized that few questioned if it was sustainable, until Traoré. When he stormed onto the scene in 2022 after toppling the previous transitional leader, critics were quick to slap on the same tired label: just another power-hungry soldier. But beneath the surface, Traoré's mind was on something far bigger than merely securing a presidential palace. New documents, revealed by insiders within his administration, show that from the earliest days after the coup, Traoré's circle was drafting a 3-year economic overhaul plan. The bold title scribbled on the top of one draft, "From Dependence to Dignity." It laid out 3 radical moves: slash reliance on imports by investing massively in local production. That meant everything from rice and maize processing plants to small factories making cement and basic construction materials. Rewrite mining contracts to claw back Burkina Faso's resources. For years, gold mining profits largely vanished into foreign corporate coffers, leaving little for communities sitting atop the wealth. Traoré wanted to flip that script, forge unconventional trade partnerships, even if it meant angering ECOWAS or Europe. This included bartering raw materials for machinery or striking deals that bypassed dollar-based systems entirely. When these plans began leaking to the public, Ouagadougou's bustling streets were divided. In the sprawling market of Sankar Yar, you could find 2 conversations at every stall.
One group would say, "He's right. We've been hand-fed by foreigners for too long. Look at our youth, bright, strong, but waiting for foreign NGOs to give them projects. It's time we build ourselves."
But just steps away, older women selling tomatoes would fret.
Prices are already going up. Last week, cooking oil jumped by 20%. If they cut more aid, how will we survive? Independence is good, but we need to eat today.
It's a cruel irony that revolutions for long-term dignity often demand short-term pain. And Burkina Faso, already fragile, has been feeling that pain. Inflation is biting. Certain imported medicines are harder to find. And with ECOWAS still wary of Traoré's military regime, official loans and regional financial support remain thin. So why is Traoré pushing ahead so aggressively? A close aide speaking anonymously said it bluntly.
"The captain believes aid is a poisoned cup. Always a little sip more and our leaders become addicted. Then when these foreign partners want new laws or want to block a project, they only have to threaten to stop pouring. He thinks it's time to break the cycle, even if it means suffering first."
In a speech not widely covered by international media, Traoré stood before a hall packed with farmers and traders last year and declared,
"Aid does not build nations. Aid keeps nations kneeling. Burkina Faso will stand, even if our legs are weak at first."
Now, as year 2 of his 3-year plan unfolds, Burkina Faso stands on a knife's edge. Rural cooperatives are popping up to process peanuts and shea butter that were once exported raw. Small workshops are trying to produce roofing tiles locally instead of importing from Ghana or Côte d'Ivoire. Meanwhile, Government auditors are combing through old mining contracts, preparing to demand new terms, or to kick companies out. It's a massive gamble. One misstep, a major drought, a terrorist attack on key infrastructure, or simply an overreach that collapses under its own weight, could undo the fragile progress. But for the first time in decades, many Burkinabés feel like the future is in their own hands. That alone, they say, is worth enduring a little more hunger now. In our next segment, we'll dive into how Traoré is shaking up the mining sector, rewriting contracts, confronting powerful multinationals, and cozying up to unlikely new partners like Russia and the UAE. Is he securing Burkina Faso's sovereignty, or just swapping one master for another? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe this is the kind of bold leadership Africa needs, or is it reckless brinkmanship? Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this story.
The Burkina President Captain Ibrahim Traoré kicked off a bold green revolution and promotion, or rather adoption, of traditional plant-based medicines that will complement modern medicines in the country's health sector, in Diba department of Zouandiogo province, by participating in the planting of a medicinal plant reserve in the commune's rural suburbs. The 37-year-old leader personally planted a tamarind, which is a tropical tree with dozens of uses, and whose parts, including the wood, bark, flowers, leaves, pulp and seeds, being used for a wide variety of commercial, culinary and medicinal purposes, in addition to its fruits being used to make beverages, sour soups, syrup drinks, leather dyes and other useful products, and being a source of food to wild animals. The exercise was part of the 2025 National Reforestation Campaign that aims at planting more than 5 million trees countrywide, and according to the head of state, this reserve will be home to a rich variety of trees and plants known for their healing properties, and will mark a powerful step towards preserving traditional medicine and protecting biodiversity. And this is what he had to say after planting the tree. Planting a tree is giving a life that will save lives. And our current policy is to ensure that plants can also help us to care for our population. This means returning to our cultural values to use our knowledge of yesteryears, and also trying to support our modern medicine. So in this case, we decided to initially put a grove in each province, and it will eventually continue in each department, and the idea is to put a certain number of plants that will help in medicine, and each individual who goes to the health centers can have the choice of modern medicine or traditional medicine from plants.
If you want to understand why Burkina Faso is risking everything to claw back economic control, look no further than the dusty gold fields of Houndé, Karma, and Essakane. These are not just mines. They're the very heart of Burkina Faso's financial lifeline. For decades, foreign mining giants from Canada, Australia, and Britain carved up the land under contracts so lopsided they bordered on exploitative. Companies exported raw gold bars by the ton, while Burkina Faso kept scraps, often less than 10% of the true value once middlemen and logistics were deducted. Local villages, meanwhile, were left with polluted water, cratered earth, and teenagers risking death in illegal pits for crumbs. So when Captain Traoré's team began rolling out the second pillar of their 3-year plan, a complete rewrite of mining agreements, it shook powerful boardrooms across Toronto and London. The new mining decrees, quietly signed last year, are shockingly direct. Minimum 60% profit retention within Burkina Faso, up from an average of 8 to 12% under older contracts. Mandatory local processing plants, ending the old practice of exporting raw ore. Environmental restoration funds that companies must pay into before even digging. It's the sort of nationalistic pivot that sends shivers through international investors. And indeed, some responded by threatening arbitration or simply packing up and leaving. But Traoré didn't blink, as one economic minister was overheard saying in a cabinet meeting,
If they leave, good. We'll bring in those who understand this is a partnership, not a plunder.
Into this void stepped two unlikely benefactors, Russia and the United Arab Emirates. Over the past year, diplomatic convoys from Moscow and Abu Dhabi have made repeated quiet trips to Ouagadougou. Leaked communiques reveal multifaceted deals. Russia offers discounted military equipment, advisors, and training, plus geological survey teams to help map new mineral zones. The UAE pledges advanced mining tech, modular refining units, and sovereign loans, all with repayment in gold shipments. not strings-laden currency that ties Burkina Faso back to Western institutions. It's a controversial move. Some Burkinabés fear the country is simply exchanging one master for another. After all, Russia is no stranger to extracting leverage through security agreements in Africa, and Gulf investors have a record of prioritizing profits over local needs. But others see it differently.
At least it's diversified now, argues Dr. Nassirou, an economist in Bobo Dioulasso. Before, if Paris or Ottawa sneezed, we caught pneumonia. Traoré's plan is to have many partners, so no one country holds the knife at our throat.
In the mining town of Hound, where children once scavenged toxic tailings, there are early signs of change. A new small-scale refining facility, built through a UAE technology grant, now employs over 200 local workers. Teenage boys who once crawled illegal shafts without helmets are learning to run chemical assays and operate automated crushers.
Yes, the work is hard, but at least it's safe now, says Solimane, 19, who used to risk cave-ins daily. And we see the money, our schools, our water pumps. Before, we only watched trucks take gold away.
Yet it's not all bright. Some foreign operators have pulled out abruptly, leaving ghost pits and half-finished community projects. Local officials scramble to fill gaps using emergency funds from the new mining profit tax. And as Burkina Faso leans on Russia for security, critics warn it may become entangled in geopolitical schemes far beyond its borders. Burkina Faso's aggressive economic pivot hasn't escaped the notice of its West African neighbors. ECOWAS, already skeptical of Traoré's military regime, has found fresh reasons for tension. The currency stability pact under the CFA franc is under strain, with Burkina Faso and Mali quietly exploring alternative trading mechanisms to escape French-dominated monetary policy. A new tri-national council between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea has formed to coordinate mining regulations and negotiate better deals as a bloc, effectively sidelining ECOWAS economic steering. This fledgling alliance is reshaping regional dynamics. If they succeed, it could spark a domino effect, with other resource-rich but cash-poor nations reconsidering their own old contracts and dependency structures. Meanwhile, Western embassies in Ouagadougou issue carefully worded statements urging stability and partnership. Behind closed doors, however, analysts admit there's deep concern.
If Traoré proves this model can work, taking back mining, building domestic industries, bypassing the West, it's going to spread, said a French diplomat in a leaked cable. That's the real fear.
But at home, not all Burkinabés cheer. Some local activists worry the rush for sovereignty overlooks proper community consultation. In one village near new Russian exploration sites, elders complained they were barely informed before heavy trucks arrived.
We want independence, says old Chief Bamogo, but we want it done with respect for our land and our ancestors, not just new foreigners taking our gold.
So is Burkina Faso writing the manual for African economic sovereignty, or merely setting the stage for a different form of exploitation? In the final segment, we'll explore the human cost of this radical shift. Rising food prices, strained social programs, and yet an undercurrent of hope that this pain is the birth pangs of true independence.
This is Azizi Breaking, where Africa rises first. Fast, verified, and unfiltered. After years of food insecurity, reliance on imports, and external pressure from donors, Burkina Faso has just pulled off a quiet agricultural revolution. And they did it in the dry season. Let's break it down. During the 2024-2025 dry season campaign, dam levels across the country reached an astonishing 113% filling rate. That's significantly up from 97% the previous year. This gave a solid foundation for massive agricultural expansion. But it's what happened next that's raising eyebrows. Thanks to targeted government interventions, cultivated land expanded by over 8%, reaching 78,893 hectares. That means more farmers, more crops, and more food. And this time, the support wasn't just talk. Over 745 solar-powered water pumps were distributed to producers, along with over 11,000 tons of subsidized fertilizer. And we're not just talking about rice. Burkina Faso introduced wheat for the first time, producing 2,957 tons of it. Wheat in the Sahel. Cereal production overall jumped 31%, totaling 52,519 tons, and vegetable output hit a whopping 1.28 million tons. That's an 8.1% increase. But back to the main headline. 41,569 tons of rice. That puts Burkina Faso closer to rice self-sufficiency than ever before.
As Burkina Faso marches into the final stretch of Traoré's audacious 3-year plan, the toll on ordinary citizens is hard to ignore. In Kaya, a town battered by both drought and insurgent raids, mothers line up at dawn for government-subsidized maize. Some days the trucks arrive late or half full. On other days they don't come at all. Inflation has driven the price of staples up by nearly 30% since the plan's launch, leaving families forced to cut meals or pull children from school to work. Aissata, a thin woman with sorrowful eyes, waits with her 3 small children in a queue that snakes around the block.
We support the president. We want Burkina Faso to be strong, but my babies are hungry, that is the truth.
Doctors in Ouagadougou's main hospital report shortages of imported antibiotics and anesthesia supplies. The shift to barter-based trade with Russia and the UAE is still ironing out logistical kinks, and warehouses that once brimmed with European shipments now stand partly empty. And yet, woven through hardship is a surprisingly stubborn thread of optimism. In the same hospital, medical interns gather around newly arrived solar-powered refrigeration units donated under a deal with Dubai. They grin as they unpack them, knowing it means fewer vaccines spoiling in the sweltering Sahel heat. Traoré's plan was never meant to deliver instant relief. Its architects are candid. Year 3 is about laying foundations. In dusty rural stretches of Yatana province, local cooperatives are harvesting their second season of sorghum under new drip irrigation systems, part of a barter deal that exchanged shea butter exports for Middle Eastern water tech. The profits stay close. Village councils pool new mining tax revenues to fund small feeder roads and patchwork health outposts. Young men, once lured to join extremist groups by promises of pay, are now seen hauling bricks or running generators at local processing hubs.
Before, we waited for NGOs to build everything. Now we build ourselves. Even if it's slower, even if it's hard.
Of course, not everyone buys the government's long-view narrative. University campuses are hotbeds of debate. Students gripe about slashed international scholarships and cancelled French-funded research labs. In whispered conversations, some accuse Traoré of driving the country toward autocracy under the cover of nationalism.
Burkina Faso is standing up, yes. But standing up is not the same as moving forward. The risk is we become a proud, broke country that still can't meet its people's needs.
And in the capital's dimly lit tea stalls, old men argue over whether Traoré's growing closeness with Russia is a smart insurance policy or just a fresh trap. Stories swirl of new military advisors speaking Russian on training fields once occupied by French commandos. For every hopeful sign, new gold processing lines, local peanut oil brands replacing imports, there are fears of deeper geopolitical entanglements. The outside world, meanwhile, is watching with a blend of alarm and grudging fascination. A recent confidential EU report warned that if Traoré succeeds, the precedent could erode Western strategic leverage across Francophone Africa. American analysts fret about a patchwork of barter economies sprouting up that sidestep the dollar. A tiny fracture today, but a possible chasm tomorrow. China, notably quiet so far, is rumored to be circling, intrigued by the chance to back infrastructure without Western regulatory strings. And other African countries, Niger, Chad, even parts of Senegal, have quietly sent delegations to study Burkina Faso's renegotiated mining laws. It all comes to a head now. Year 3 is supposed to prove that Burkina Faso can stand on its own. Key tests loom. Will the new tri-nation bank launched with Mali and Guinea manage stable cross-border lending outside of ECOWAS frameworks? Can the new local processing facilities maintain output to match what once flowed effortlessly from foreign-run megaplants? And critically, will food prices stabilize enough to keep public patience intact? If Burkina Faso weathers these storms, it could mark the start of an African economic model rooted not in dependency, but in dignified trade. If it falters, it may cement cynics' views that sovereignty is a dream too costly for nations still fighting to feed their children. Back in the village of Sabek, a mother named Fadima sits by a new water borehole, the first in her village paid for entirely from Burkina Faso's new mining royalties. No foreign development agency plaque in sight. Her daughter splashes nearby, giggling in water that no longer must be hauled 5 kilometers in scorching heat.
We are suffering, yes. But is this water? It is ours, not a gift that someone can take back. We paid for it with our gold, our work. Her voice catches. I want my children to grow up not thanking foreigners for every small thing. I want them to grow up proud.
So, Is Burkina Faso pioneering a new path for Africa? Proving that with grit and sacrifice a nation can finally own its destiny? Or is this simply a painful tour that may yet snap under the weight of too many hopes? Tell us what you think in the comments. Is Captain Traoré a visionary willing to endure hardship for real sovereignty, or a reckless gambler risking his people's future? Like this video. If it gives you a new perspective, share it so more people can weigh in. And subscribe, because this is just the start of our journey tracking Africa's boldest economic experiment.